Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to take this opportunity to condemn the terrorist attack. It is not justified by anything in the Islamic religion, and I totally condemn it 100% without any reservation.
This idea that you have moderate Muslims and you have radical Muslims is complete nonsense. Allahu Akbar!
I have the answer to the war on terror. See, Jesus put himself on the cross so I wouldn't have to shed my own blood.
I've got one that can see.
It's time for Radical Truth with Tony Gurley.
Have you bought the book yet, folks? Have you bought An American Woman Living in Egypt, Life During an Islamic Takeover? The author is Sherry Behrens, and I gave you a lot of information about the book in the last episode, in part 1 of Life During an Islamic Takeover. Here in part 2, I'm just going to give a quick review for anyone who saw the first episode. Is more for people who didn't see the first episode, because I'm encouraging you right now, go back and watch part 1 first. And in this one, we're going to build on that, but again, a quick review here. This book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can get the paperback, or you can get the digital if you have a Kindle or if you have a Nook. Folks, doesn't matter how you get it. Either way, get it, support Sherry and her husband, and again, the sacrifice that they have made and the effort that they have made to get this information to the world. She is being censored and shadow banned, and you will not be surprised that that is taking place when you read her book. And even if you read one of her articles, you won't be surprised that she's being censored and shadow banned. So again, help get this information out to the world. Also, as I mentioned in the last episode, you can actually support Radical Truth in general when you shop on Amazon. Just go to smile.amazon.com. Let that be your new login page. But you use the current username and password that you have right now, that you're not setting up a new account. You're simply going in to Amazon's charity page where you select a particular charity, and yes, Radical Truth is listed in there. Why not support Radical Truth through all of your shopping that you do on Amazon? Because that helps us continue to work full-time proclaiming truth, sharing the gospel, and exposing Islam. Now, folks, sherrybehrens.net is her website. That's where you need to go to get her information in a place that she can control. Again, she's getting shadow banned on social media and other places. Now, here are the chapters that we talked about in the last episode. I mentioned that there is an introduction to the book. There is a conclusion of what can we do, and those are the two things that I want to get to in this episode. I want to give you the introduction, and then I want to give you the what can we do, which is not available anywhere online. You want to get the book in order to get the hard copy of this what can we do, but I'm going to share that with you because where we are now, people need the action steps. So, get the book to get all the meat in all of these very important chapters. Egypt 101, the Revolution, U.S. involvement, the Christian origins of the Quran, the beginning of the end, and the end. And again, as I said, there's nearly a 20-page bibliography. Get her book. She'll cite all of the sources and give you the information that you need to know. Folks, here's the introduction to the book. And she breaks down parts of the chapters and what's in them as well. Here we go. I'm going to read it word for word for you. Chapter 1 recounts firsthand experiences and insights into a Muslim culture. These insights are meant to give you an introduction to the effects Islam has on society. Then, as you read the chapters that follow, give thought to the events that have taken place in America. And by chapter 5, you will be aware of the crisis lurking inside America. In Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood laid the foundation of their takeover by placing activists inside universities. In America, the same strategy was put in place. The Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood entered America in 1962 and began inserting Muslim student organizations into American universities. Today, there are more than 800 chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood organizations on American university campuses. In the 1970s, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt set up militant training camps and developed a strategy of recruiting in prisons. Upon release, recruits were funneled into the training camps and formed militias. In the 1970s, the Pakistani branch of the Muslim Brotherhood entered America and set up 22 jihadi training camps. They began conversion programs in American prisons and began recruiting in prisons. Today, there are 35 known jihadi training camps in America. In the 1980s, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt intensified the Islamist agenda inside universities and began a strategy of removing anything related to Egyptian heritage or nationalism. They preached that all Muslims, no matter what country they lived in, should be united under Islam with no distinction of nationality or cultural traditions to separate them from their Islamic identity. In 1981, the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood entered America and intensified the Islamist agenda on American university campuses. They promoted Islamic lifestyle on American campuses and encouraged Muslims to have separate Islamic communities and resist assimilation into American culture. The Muslim Brotherhood also placed Sharia councils on American university campuses to encourage Muslims to implement Sharia into their daily life. In Egypt, by the 1990s, Islamists had gained positions at every university. They became faculty members and administrators and were able to further the Islamist agenda. In America, we have seen the co-opting of our youth via a liberal agenda placed in our universities. This liberal agenda plays an integral part in accelerating the Muslim Brotherhood's Islamist agenda into mainstream America. Since the insertion of this agenda, we have seen: number 1, demands for changes to school calendars to recognize Muslim holidays while simultaneously removing Christian holidays. Number 2, the insertion of Islam into our K-12 school curriculum while simultaneously removing American history. 3, demands to integrate Muslim prayer rooms into schools while demanding the removal of crosses at Christian schools. 4, demands to remove the Pledge of Allegiance due to its reference to God and allegiance to American values. In Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood removed Egyptian history from textbooks, and the national anthem was banned. In America, we've seen a similar effort to remove American history, and there's been a campaign against nationalism. Within weeks after Obama was elected president, the State Department held an Alliance of Youth Movement Summit. Chapters 2 and 5 detail how members of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood were recruited via the summit and were funneled into CIA coup training camps. These camps taught militants how to mobilize large protests where they could conduct false flag events that would facilitate the removal of governments. Representatives from Facebook, Google, NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, and MSNBC attended the summit. Facebook and Google aided the Muslim Brotherhood in creating and promoting the Arab Spring protests, and then mainstream media spread false news to cover up the Islamic takeover that was actually taking place. In Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood worked subversively with activist front groups in order to covertly work towards their goals. Members of Muslim Brotherhood in America work covertly with activist front groups such as Black Lives Matter, Women's March, and others to achieve their goals. As you will learn in chapters 2 and 4, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt demonized police in order to destabilize them and force them to stand down. Once they were destabilized, police were replaced with Islamist militias. In 2008, Obama promised to create a civilian national security force that would be just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded as the U.S. military. Throughout Obama's presidency, we witnessed a massive effort to demonize police, and there were several instances where police were told to stand down. Was Obama's civilian security force ready in the waiting? As detailed in Chapter 2, the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda worked together to remove governments. The Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda work subversively in various countries creating militias. These militias are meant to overthrow governments. As detailed in this book, starting in 2011, the Obama administration backed the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Al-Qaeda in Libya, and the rebel, quote-unquote, opposition groups attempting to overthrow the Syrian government. The opposition groups in Syria were Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda. Islam is spreading rapidly throughout the world, and with its spread, slavery is returning, rape is skyrocketing, and pedophilia is being promoted as an acceptable practice. These were behaviors of Muhammad. The life of Muhammad and Islamic history are taught in our K-12 curriculum and in our universities as fact, quote-unquote, without any avenue or options to question them. Graduate students and doctorate candidates are not allowed to introduce evidence that contradicts Muslim sources on Muhammad, the Quran, and Islamic history. Research studies that introduce evidence contradicting Islamic history have been removed from our university libraries and research programs. Chapter 3 gives an overview of studies and books that need to be reinserted into our university programs and our libraries. All Americans need to learn the questionable aspects of Islam outlined in this book in order to halt further Islamification of America. Chapters 4 and 5 detail the horrors of what happens to a country once Islam has infiltrated, but also demonstrates what happens when people become complacent and do nothing to stop it. Read this book and do not be complacent. Folks, that is the introduction to this book before the 5 chapters that I've shared with you. When we come back, we're going to get to the action steps that everybody needs, even if you can't get the book, which I highly recommend you do.
As a 501c3 Christian ministry, Radical Truth is dependent upon God to provide our monthly financial support, and He provides through people like you who realize the need for this vital work. Your regular prayers and monthly financial gifts allow us to continue our full-time effort to equip the body of Christ with the training necessary to effectively engage Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ. At Radical Truth, we proclaim the truth, share the gospel, and expose Islam. Please partner with us by visiting radicaltruth.net and making a tax-deductible donation. That's radicaltruth.net.
1 John 5:13. These things have been written that you may know that you have eternal life. We have the answer Muslims are looking for. Why are Muslims here in our land today? Because God wants to get them saved. We didn't go to them, so God brought them over here to us.
This is Radical Truth with Tony Gurley.
Folks, there's a very good chance that you're already blown away by the information that you have heard. And amazingly, and what people need to know is that what you've already heard, and this book in general, was copyrighted in 2018. If you go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, it'll show a 2019 publish date. Folks, this information has been out there. It just hasn't been shared. It hasn't been promoted. Like I said, Sherry's been censored and shadow banned. What I just read to you before the break was the introduction to the book. And now I'm getting to the conclusion and what can we do. This is not available anywhere online when you look at a preview of the book. Get the book to get a hard copy of this. What can we do? These are the action steps for all people everywhere. Here we go. Reading word for word, this is what Sherry wrote. Muslim sources of Islamic history want you to believe that after converting to Islam, Arab tribes supplied many thousands of warriors for the Islamic conquest of the Levant and Persia. You were told that the decision to invade these lands was taken in Arabia, from an isolated, uninhabitable location. You were told many thousands of stories of what Muhammad said and did, and are told these stories must be taken as fact, even though there is no evidence of any kind to verify these stories as factual. You were told that many of the things Muhammad said and did some 1400 years ago must be made into laws, and that Muhammad's behavior is ideal and must be emulated, even though Muhammad was a robber, rapist, murderer, torturer, and pedophile. This propaganda about Islam and Muhammad has been placed into our K-12 school curriculum. The life of Muhammad and the Islamic conquest are being taught as fact in our universities without any avenue to question it. The Islamic takeover is in its final stage in many parts of the world. Central Asia, North and Central Africa, Malaysia, and Indonesia have become Muslim majority, and Islam is being enforced in these countries. Islam has become a serious threat in North and Western Europe, and India is experiencing a hideous and violent transition to Islam. Islamophobia laws, or blasphemy laws, are being implemented in Australia and Canada. To combat the rapid growth of Islam in our country, we need to immediately stop debating Muslims on their terms. Currently, our debates wholly consist of rehashing unreliable Muslim sources from the 9th and 10th centuries. Instead, we must introduce and discuss modern research and facts that contradict the Muslim sources. Yes, it's extremely important to know what Muslims are taught and what they believe, but we must begin introducing the facts that will disable Islam at its core so that we are better able to fight the subversive takeover taking place in our own country. We must begin making demands that our university programs balance the Muslim version of Islamic history with research that presents the facts that question it. And most importantly, we must encourage a new wave of research to replace this absurd reliance on Muslim sources from the 9th and 10th centuries. Thanks to 8 years of Obama, we saw an influx of Muslim immigrants in astronomical numbers. The majority of these immigrants have no intention of assimilating. They are forming their own communities and are enforcing Islamic laws in those communities. The Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood entered America in 1962 and began their system of changing American youth by infiltrating universities. The Pakistani branch entered America in 1971 and created jihadi camps. Thousands of mosques in America are used by the Muslim Brotherhood to radicalize and promote jihad. Evidence from a 15-year FBI investigation revealed: 1. There's a massive jihadi network in the United States primarily controlled by the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood. 2. The objective of the network is to replace America's constitutional republic with an Islamic state under Islamic law. 3. The most prominent Islamic organizations in the United States are part of this jihadi network. A violent sector of anti-American society has been radicalized and has been mobilized inside America. Gun control is promoted by all Muslim Brotherhood organizations in America. It's a no-brainer why they want to take away our guns. Become aware of gun laws your state is proposing and fight back. The NRA website offers great information and is a good place to start. In 1981, the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood entered America and an aggressive political agenda began at that time. Today, decades later, it has become blatant that many of our politicians have been co-opted by this agenda. Follow Muslim Brotherhood organizations on social media. They have state and local affiliates on Facebook and Twitter. Follow them and you will begin to see how enormous this threat is, and you'll be more able to fight them. The Muslim Brotherhood created student organizations on American university campuses. Whether you have children or not, follow these organizations on social media. You will learn the strategies that are being used on the youth of America, and you'll be better prepared to fight their propaganda. Awareness of their activities and strategies is paramount. In the 1990s, American media began to be co-opted. Via control of university bureaucracy, placed decades earlier, fact-based journalism in university programs has been removed. This was done to more easily insert mass media propaganda. Watch and promote alternative media sites that do not report propaganda and fake news. Experiment with different conservative talk radio shows that discuss factual political news and events. We have been witnessing massive censorship on Facebook and Twitter. Join the alternative social media sites in preparation for further censorship, but also to have a place where you can network and rally. Sign up for Liberty Rush, Codius, MeWe, Gab, and others in preparation for intensification of Facebook and Twitter censorship. In 1996, the Somali branch of the Muslim Brotherhood arrived in America and intensified the Islamification process. Since their arrival, radical Islam has become visible in every state. If you have a large Sharia-adherent population in your city or state, you must get involved in state and local government immediately. What are the visible signs of Sharia adherence and what does it mean? See Behrens' Jihad in American Mosques for descriptions and case studies. Now, this is just referring to an article that she wrote. And again, all of her articles are in the bibliography. Chapter 3. I purposefully chose and cited research from specialists in the fields of Aramaic, Arabic, Quranic studies, Islamic studies, and so forth. Use Chapter 3 as a handbook to fight the Islamic takeover in America. Focus on the discrepancies in the Muslim version of Islamic history and spread the word. Make sure you read The Islamification of Biblical History in the appendix to fully understand the fabricated Islamic version of biblical history, which is warping the minds of American youth. Even if you are not religious, read information from websites that give archaeological evidence of events in the Bible. Unlike Islam, which has absolutely no archaeological evidence of its early existence, there's an enormous amount of evidence that backs the Bible. Muslims around the world are taught that Jerusalem belongs to Islam. Learn the facts and fight with facts. Fight your employer and local schools and prevent them from creating Islamic prayer rooms. Fight them with facts. See Behrens, No Need for Prayer Rooms at Schools or Workplace. Muslims are allowed to miss prayers. Again, this is one of her articles. During the Abbasid period, as Islam was being created, around 90% of the books in the larger cities were destroyed. Though done differently, the same strategy is taking place today. Books that challenge Islamic history are being removed from bookshelves. Muslim Brotherhood organizations are currently targeting libraries. Google searches for truth will only result in lies. Google has removed factual non-Muslim research articles on Islam. I know because I have witnessed their disappearance. Even if you use alternative search engines, the database of information is established by Google. Never trust the internet if the information given rehashes Muslim sources. Become savvy as to how corrupt the internet has become in regards to Islam. Make requests at your local library to purchase books that counter Islam or that question Islam. Fight to get these books on the bookshelves. The future of America depends on being able to combat Islam with facts. If you belong to a book club, get these books added to the reading list. Many states in America have made foreign laws illegal, making some Americans feel a false sense of security. While it is excellent that some states are doing this, don't feel safe. Every Muslim who goes to mosque is told that he or she must live by Islamic law. Every mosque in America teaches Islamic law to its congregation. Most every university campus in America that has a Muslim Brotherhood student organization, there are more than 800 of them, has an Islamic council, quote-unquote, on campus where advice is given as to how to live by Islamic law. Young males attend mandatory Sharia classes held at mosque. These young men will be enforcing Sharia on their future wives and children. Massive numbers of Muslims are already living by Islamic law. Muslims in America have their own Islamic law courtrooms called Shura councils. Several of these exist throughout America. Muslims go to mosque or to Shura councils when they need a judge or a courtroom. Islamic laws are being created at many of these centers. Soon, the Muslim Brotherhood in America will try to enforce Islamic laws on Americans. It will begin with Islamophobia laws, which are blasphemy laws and censorship laws in disguise. Once these censorship laws are put into place, we will become impotent. Follow activity taking place in your state and local government. The Muslim Brotherhood organizes frequent visits to state capitals and local council meetings to push their agenda on your state and local representatives. Become aware of laws being proposed. Awareness is key so you can prevent these laws from being enacted. Turkey and Saudi Arabia have been working for decades at converting Central Americans to Islam, and there has been an intensified program of mosque building in South America. There's a direct pipeline for terrorists from the Middle East to South and Central America. Our borders are vulnerable. It is more important than ever before that you support the building of a border wall and promote the enforcement of immigration laws. The Muslim Brotherhood has more than 70 well-established organizations inside America. The Muslim Brotherhood has been organizing in America since the 1960s. The Brotherhood has altered our youth, altered our police forces, and altered our government. 2 examples should move you to action. 1. Before the Las Vegas massacre, the Las Vegas Police Department participated in a massive Muslim outreach program. Part of the program was that Las Vegas police officers had to attend mosques regularly. The LVPD's officers participated in Islamic customs. Female officers wore hijabs during Friday prayers, and officers met with mosque leaders to help reduce red tape, quote-unquote, when mosque members were arrested. 2. In Broward County, Florida, where the school shooting took place, and which implemented another movement to take away gun rights, a Broward County deputy visited 16 mosques and trained Muslims to arm themselves. As in Las Vegas, these mosques were Muslim Brotherhood mosques. Most smaller police departments have not yet become infected by Islamification, and most police departments have a Facebook page or website. Go to those web pages and get to know your local police department. Most have public events. Go to their events and meet members of your police. Then ask your local police department to invite Understanding the Threat to give a training session. And she references understandingthethreat.com. Demonizing police is a strategy meant to disable police or remove police. In America, the Muslim Brotherhood demonized police by promoting the falsity that police target African Americans. They used Black Lives Matter to spread and promote this propaganda. Become informed before you jump on the cop-hating bandwagon. If massive protests occur, causing chaos and mayhem, you do not want your police demonized to the point where they are afraid to act or told to stand down. And make sure you elect local politicians who are pro-police. Join Act for America. ACT educates citizens about Islam and helps pass security-related bills. If you are a parent, start homeschooling or become much more involved in your local schools. Islam is being heavily proselytized in public schools. Never forget, the Mutawa's system starts by brainwashing children. If you belong to a religious community, start inviting Understanding the Threat to advise and educate. The Muslim Brotherhood are arming themselves in American mosques. Make your church, synagogue, or other community aware. This book details the horrors of what happens to a country once Islam has infiltrated, but also demonstrates what happens when people become complacent and do nothing to stop it. Do not be complacent. Folks, you now know about the 5 chapters in Sherry's book. You have now heard word for word the introduction and the conclusion. What can we do? The action steps that everybody needs. Buy her book in paperback or digital copy on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And remember, folks, the gospel, the good news about the Lord Jesus Christ, is what everyone needs, and everyone includes all Muslims. The power of the gospel is the only thing that can regenerate a heart and renew a mind and actually change a person's worldview permanently. The gospel is the ultimate solution, folks, but other things are helpful as well. And one of those things is being informed. Get the book and share this information with others. And we'll talk with you next time on Radical Truth.